Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine trillions, literally trillions, of tiny organisms living inside you. And they're not just hanging out. They might actually be influencing everything. Your mood swings, maybe even your drive for success. Welcome to Dan's Plain Gut Punch, Why the Organisms Inside May Control Us. I'm Edward.
And I'm Lily.
And you've joined us for the deep dive. This is where we take a really complex and fascinating subject, dig through the science, the research.
And pull out the crucial bits for you, the need-to-know stuff.
Exactly. Today, we're diving deep into your gut microbiome, that incredible community of microbes living in your digestive system. We've looked at a ton of scientific studies showing these tiny residents have way more power over our health, our well-being, than, frankly, I ever realized.
It's a huge area of research right now.
Totally. So we're going to explore how they impact your behavior, their surprising role in human evolution.
Which is fascinating.
Yeah. And their connection to things like inherited alcoholism, neurological disorders, and maybe even potentially traits we see in successful people.
Right. The goal here is to give you a clear, engaging shortcut to understanding this complex world inside us. And importantly, what we can actually do about it. How to influence this internal ecosystem positively.
Think of it as unlocking a deeper understanding of yourself, from the inside out.
Okay, so first off, what's really fascinating is that the gut isn't just like a passive tube for food. It's incredibly active. A control center, almost. There's constant communication flowing back and forth to the brain.
Like a hotline.
Pretty much. Think of the gut and brain constantly talking. This hotline, scientifically it's called the gut-brain axis, uses all sorts of signals, nerves, hormones, even immune messengers to swap information nonstop.
A two-way street then. And get this, our gut bacteria, they're like tiny little chemical factories down there.
They really are.
They're producing a huge amount of key neurotransmitters. We're talking, up to 90% of the body's serotonin?
That's the figure often cited, yeah. Serotonin, your happy hormone. And it's being made right there in your gut by bacteria like lactobacillus and bifidobacterium.
And not just serotonin, right?
Nope. They're also involved in making dopamine pleasure, motivation, and GABA, which helps keep us calm.
It's almost unbelievable thinking our happiness, our motivation, could be so directly tied to these microbes. Does this mean we should be looking at mental health completely differently, maybe focusing more on gut health?
Well, it certainly pushes us in that direction, doesn't it? It raises that really important question. And the evidence for this behavioral influence is, it's pretty striking.
Like the mouse studies.
Exactly. Studies on germ-free mice. These are mice raised in totally sterile conditions, no gut microbes at all. They consistently show higher anxiety levels, impaired social interactions too.
Right.
But here's the really telling part. When you introduce specific bacteria back into these mice, some of those behavioral issues can actually be reversed. It really highlights a direct microbial impact.
That's incredible. And it's not just mice, is it? There's human research, too. I saw that 2024 PNAS Nexus study.
Oh, yeah, the symbiotic one. Really interesting.
Right. People took a symbiotic that's a mix of pro and prebiotics for 7 weeks.
Right.
And they showed increased altruistic behavior, like being more generous or helpful.
And the researchers think it might be linked to higher dopamine levels caused by the symbiotic. It suggests a very direct chemical pathway from the gut to our social actions.
Wow.
Precisely. And then you flip it. Look at gut dysbiosis. That's just an imbalance in your gut microbes. It's strongly linked to conditions like depression and anxiety.
So an unhealthy gut, potentially an unhealthy mind state.
The correlation is strong. Research often finds people with these conditions have lower microbial diversity overall. Fewer of those beneficial types like Prevotella that we mentioned.
So it's like our internal biochemical factory is directly messing with our mental state if it's out of whack.
That seems to be a big part of the picture, yes. Microbial balance looks key for emotional well-being.
Okay, so putting it simply, it really looks like these trillions of microbes are pulling a lot of strings, affecting how we feel, how we act, through brain chemistry, immune responses. But it's still early days in some ways, right? Research is ongoing.
Oh, absolutely. It's a rapidly evolving field. We're learning more all the time about these complex interactions. But if we zoom out a bit, this relationship, this deep connection between humans and our gut microbes, it's not new. It's a story of coevolution, millennia in the making.
Coevolution.
Yeah.
Right, where two species kind of evolved together, influencing each other. How did that play out with us and our microbes?
Well, diet is a classic example. Think about digesting lactose milk sugar as adults. not everyone could always do that.
Right. Lactose intolerance is common.
Exactly. But the theory is, as some human groups started domesticating dairy animals, having gut bacteria that could break down lactose became a big advantage.
Ah, so the bacteria helped us use a new food source.
Precisely. And over time, this likely favored genetic adaptations in those human populations for lactose tolerance. It shows how our diet changed our microbes, which then helped us adapt further.
That's a great example. Our diet isn't just feeding us, it's cultivating specific helpers inside us.
You got it. And the microbiome also played a huge role in shaping our immune system. From when we're very young, our gut microbes basically train our immune cells
Train them how?
to tell the difference between dangerous invaders, pathogens, and the harmless or beneficial microbes that should be left alone. This early education probably cut down the risk of autoimmune diseases in our ancestors.
Like basic training for the body's defenses.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Now, I did read something suggesting the microbiome might have even played a part in brain evolution. That sounds huge.
It does, and it's a fascinating question.
Yeah.
But this is where the science is still more hypothetical.
Okay.
The idea revolves around nutrients produced by gut bacteria, things like short-chain fatty acids or SCFAs, and also how the microbiome regulates inflammation.
SCFAs.
Yeah.
Those come from fermenting fiber.
Right, exactly. They're fuel for brain cells, and they help control inflammation body-wide. So the thinking is, maybe over long evolutionary timescales, these microbial influences could have helped shape brain development. But, and it's a big but, direct proof, conclusive evidence, we don't really have that yet.
Got it. So an intriguing idea, but the really solid evolutionary contributions seem to be more around digestion and immunity.
That's where the evidence is strongest, yes. So, okay, we've seen how vital the microbiome has been for us historically. Now let's shift to how imbalances today might contribute to modern problems like inherited alcoholism or AUD alcohol use disorder.
Right. We know genetics play a role in AUD, but you're saying the microbiome is potentially another factor.
It seems to be a significant piece of a very complex puzzle, yeah.
Yeah.
People with AUD often show a specific kind of gut dysbiosis, lower microbial diversity overall, and often an overgrowth of certain types of bacteria that might not be so helpful. There was a study back in 2017 in microbiome that actually found distinct microbial signatures linked to addiction and liver damage in people with AUD.
Huh. So it's not just that drinking affects the gut, but the gut state might be linked to the AUD itself.
That's the idea. It could be a two-way street.
Yeah.
And some of these bacteria, they can produce metabolites, byproducts that might actually mimic some alcohol effects.
Really?
Or they might influence the brain's neurotransmitter systems involved in cravings. So these microbial chemicals could potentially ramp up addiction risk, especially if someone's already genetically predisposed.
Wow. So the gut microbes could be like fueling the fire.
It's a potential mechanism, yes. And you mentioned inheritance.
Yeah, how does that work? We don't inherit bacteria through genes, do we?
No, not directly. But the mother's microbiome is passed to the baby during birth and early life. This initial seeding of the baby's gut sets the stage. It could potentially create a gut environment that makes someone more or less susceptible to developing AUD down the line.
So it's this complex mix. Genetics, the microbes we get early on, and then how those microbes might influence addiction pathways later. It definitely sounds like the microbiome is part of the AUD story, but not the whole story.
Exactly. It's one factor among many. And this idea, this microbiome connection, it pops up in other neurological disorders too. There's growing evidence it's involved in the start and maybe the progression of brain conditions.
Like which ones?
Well, take Parkinson's disease. Studies consistently find gut dysbiosis in Parkinson's patients. Specifically, they often have less Prevotella bacteria.
We mentioned Prevotella earlier, linked to good health.
Right, and more bacteria known to produce misfolded alpha-synuclein. That's the protein that clumps up in the brains of Parkinson's patients. And a 2019 study actually linked these specific gut microbe changes to how severe the motor symptoms were. It suggests a real gut-brain connection in Parkinson's.
That's a strong link. What about Alzheimer's? Is there a similar story?
Research suggests there might be. Gut bacteria could contribute to neuroinflammation in the brain, and maybe even the formation of those amyloid beta plaques seen in Alzheimer's.
Ow!
Well, one study in 2019 suggested that certain microbial metabolites, those byproducts again, might be able to cross the blood-brain barrier.
Get from the gut right into the brain.
Potentially. And once there, they could worsen cognitive decline. So stuff made by our gut bacteria might be directly impacting Alzheimer's progression.
Yeah, quite a thought. And autism spectrum disorders. ASD.
We often see altered gut microbiomes in children with ASD. Lower levels of beneficial bacteria is a common finding. Now, some trials using probiotics have shown some modest improvements in certain behaviors.
But it's not a cure-all.
Definitely not. The results aren't always consistent, and the microbiome is likely just one piece of the very complex puzzle that is ASD.
Okay, so across these different conditions, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, ASD, the microbiome seems to be popping up as a contributing factor, often through things like inflammation or maybe producing problematic proteins. But again, it's not the only cause, right?
Absolutely correct. These are incredibly complex conditions. The microbiome looks like one important player, but not the whole team. Now, let's pivot slightly to maybe a more surprising area. The potential link between our gut microbes and, well, traits we often link with successful people.
Okay, this is interesting. Success means different things to different people, obviously, but what kind of traits are we talking about potentially being linked to gut health?
Well, again, success is subjective, but think about things like sociability, resilience, sharp cognitive function. A healthy, balanced microbiome seems to be associated with these kinds of traits, qualities that often help people achieve things. And conversely, an imbalanced microbiome might be linked to less desirable traits.
All right, let's break that down. How could gut bacteria influence how sociable we are? That seems like a stretch.
It sounds it, but there was a 2019 study in Current Biology that found something intriguing. People with larger social networks, they tended to have more diverse gut microbiome.
Really? Why?
One idea is that we actually share microbes with people we're in close contact with, so more social interaction, potentially more microbial exchange, leading to greater diversity. And of course, being sociable often helps in life, personally and professionally.
Huh. It's kind of mind-blowing, our social life potentially shaping our internal ecosystem. What about resilience? Bouncing back from stuff? That's key for success, surely.
Totally key. And generally, a healthy gut is linked to lower stress and anxiety levels. That promotes emotional stability and makes you more resilient when things get tough.
Okay.
And on the flip side, a 2018 study linked higher levels of neuroticism, a trait maybe less helpful for success, with having more of a specific bacterial group called gamma proteobacteria.
So a healthier gut might lead to a more balanced emotional state, helping us handle setbacks better.
That's the compelling idea, yes. A well-nourished inner ecosystem contributing to emotional equilibrium.
And finally, cognition.
Yeah.
Brain power. How does the gut tie into that regarding success?
We touched on those short-chain fatty acids, SCFAs, before. A diverse, thriving microbiome makes plenty of these.
Right. Fuel for the brain, anti-inflammatory.
Exactly. And they're thought to boost cognitive functions like memory and focus. Definitely useful for performance and achieving goals, whereas gut dysbiosis has been linked to cognitive deficits.
So it seems like a flourishing internal community might support some key traits for success, while an imbalance could potentially hold us back, affecting well-being and thinking skills. The connections are just everywhere, aren't they?
They really are. But the good news, the really encouraging part, is that we're not just passive bystanders here. We actually have quite a bit of control over our gut microbiome.
Okay, this is what people want to know. What can we actually do to fix things if they're out of balance, to encourage a healthier gut?
Right. Diet is absolutely fundamental, probably the single most impactful thing. You want to focus on fiber and, crucially, variety, especially plant-based foods.
Variety. How much variety?
A good target to aim for is 30 or more different types of plant-based foods each week.
30. Wow. So lots of different fruits, vegetables, whole grains, nuts, seeds.
Exactly. A wide spectrum. That feeds a diverse range of beneficial microbes.
Okay, 30 plants a week. What else for diet?
Fermented foods. These are fantastic. Things like live culture yogurt, kefir, kimchi, sauerkraut, miso. They're packed with live beneficial bacteria, probiotics, that can help repopulate your gut.
I like kimchi, so that's good news.
Yeah.
What about prebiotics? You hear that term too.
Prebiotics are basically food for your good gut bacteria. There are types of fiber that we can't digest, but our beneficial microbes love them.
So they help the good guys already there to thrive.
Precisely. Good sources are things like garlic, onions, leeks, bananas, asparagus, oats. So it's a combo. Add good bacteria with fermented foods and feed the good bacteria you have with prebiotics.
Makes sense. Feed and seed. What about foods to limit?
Yeah, generally you want to cut back on highly processed foods. Lots of added sugar, artificial sweeteners. These tend to feed the less desirable bacteria.
Okay, that tracks with general healthy eating advice. What about taking probiotic supplements? Pills or drinks?
They can be helpful, yes. Supplements containing specific strains like lactobacillus and bifidobacterium can help restore balance, especially maybe after antibiotics or an illness, but
Huh.
it's really best to talk to a doctor or a registered dietitian. It's not one size fits all. Different strains do different things, and getting personalized advice is usually the most effective way to go.
Good point. Okay, so diet is key. What about other lifestyle stuff?
Huge impact as well. Regular exercise, for instance, it's been shown to increase microbial diversity.
Just moving your body helps your gut microbes.
Seems so. Sleep is another big one. Aiming for 7-9 hours of quality sleep per night really supports gut health. Poor sleep can mess with it.
Okay, exercise, sleep. What else?
Stress management. Chronic stress is really bad for your gut microbiome. It can direct cause dysbiosis. So practices like meditation, yoga, spending time in nature, whatever works for you to de-stress, that helps protect your gut too.
So it really is the whole package: diet, exercise, sleep, stress. The foundations of health seem to apply right down to our microbes.
They absolutely do. They all work together to create a healthy internal environment.
What about those more advanced things, like fecal transplants?
Right, fecal microbiota transplantation, FMT. That's where stool from a healthy donor is transferred to a recipient. It's incredibly effective for treating severe C. diff infections, which can be life-threatening.
But it's not something you do just to generally improve your gut health.
Not currently, no. It's reserved for specific, serious conditions. The long-term effects for general use aren't fully understood yet.
Okay. So for most of us, the main levers are diet modifications, lots of diverse plants, fermented foods, maybe some prebiotics, perhaps targeted probiotics if advised, and then really nailing those lifestyle basics: exercise, sleep, and keeping stress in check.
That's the core strategy, yes. Build the foundation with a diverse diet, potentially add reinforcements with probiotics, and maintain a healthy environment with good lifestyle habits. And like you said, getting personalized guidance can make it even more effective.
Right. Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. What are the big takeaways from this deep dive? It seems crystal clear that these trillions of microbes in our gut are, well, incredibly influential.
Profoundly influential, yeah.
They affect our behavior through brain chemistry. They've shaped our evolution, especially digestion and immunity. And they seem tangled up in serious conditions like inherited alcoholism and neurological disorders like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's.
And maybe even surprisingly, they foster traits we associate with success. Sociability, resilience, mental clarity. The interconnectedness is just remarkable.
It really is. From how we feel day to day to our long-term health risks, the microbiome is right there in the middle of it all.
A central player, absolutely.
But the really empowering part is that we're not just passive hosts, are we? We can actually do things. We can shape this internal world through our choices. Diet, lifestyle, we have agency.
That's the crucial message. We can actively cultivate a healthier microbiome.
So here's a final thought to leave people with. Considering how deeply intertwined these microbes are with, well, us, our health, our minds, maybe even our potential, how might future discoveries change how we think about personal responsibility for health, or how we develop new treatments?
It's a huge question, isn't it? It really could reshape things. Definitely food for thought.
Indeed it is. Well, that wraps up our deep dive into the gut microbiome for today. If you found this as fascinating as we did, please do hit like and subscribe so you don't miss our next exploration.
Yeah, we'd appreciate that.
And for all the latest Dansplain deep dives, related articles, info on partner products, all that good stuff, head over to www.dansplain.xyz. That's www.dansplain.xyz. Thanks so much for joining us.